Hi everybody, it is Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. Today I am here with my meh books from 2020. Let's jump right into it. As you know, not every year can we read all 5-star books. So this year I had some books that were just kind of meh. They weren't the worst books that I've read. Trust me, there have been some of those. But I really don't want to bash books. I know, who am I? But the further I get into my writing career and the closer that I get to trying to get an agent, I realize, and I always have, how much work goes into writing a book. And I just don't want to be that person that's like, guess what? Your book was trash. You know, I'm trying to be a little gentler to all those writers out there because it's not easy. So these are books that I anticipated being 5-star reads that I thought I was going to really, really love, that I was super anticipating. And then they came along and they were just kind of meh. 3-star reads. Not nearly as good as I thought they were going to be. And they're not bad, they're just not for me. Let's jump into a couple of the meh things that I've read this year. First up is this gorgeous book, this Night Country by Melissa Albert. I am one of those people that really read and loved The Hazelwood. This is the sequel to The Hazelwood, and I loved it. I thought it was magical and whimsical and amazing. And then this one kind of fell flat for me. I don't know. It's got that contemporary fantasy feel to it where it's set in our world, but there's these magical elements and there's still this thread of danger that kind of goes throughout the book. And for me, this fell very flat in terms of where I thought the book was going, where it ended up going, and it just kind of didn't work. It's gorgeous. I annotated it, and I do really like the duology together. I am still interested also in the bind-up of just the tales from Hinterland, which is the fairy tale aspect of this book. I do still think I want to buy that. But this one ended up not being the 5-star that The Hazelwood was for me. And that might also just be my changing reading tastes. You'll see that I really have not been reading a lot of YA, especially YA fantasy just has not been happening for me this year. So it might also just be my changing reading tastes. But it was just kind of okay. I'm going to throw one in here that I think is a little bit unfair, and I apologize. As I was putting the list together, this truly was a meh book for me. I feel bad about it, but I'm gonna just kind of throw it out there. It's Across the Green Grass Fields by Shauna Maguire. This is book 5 or 6 of the Wayward Children series. I'm looking at my stack. I don't know what number we're on. This, and here's why I feel like a dick, this doesn't come out until January of 2021. So it's coming out soon, but it's not out yet. And for me, this was meh. I have 5-starred every single book in this series, and while I have my favorites in the series, I think that I still see where people are going to love a specific book, and I still love the journey and the world building and where we're going with things. This book doesn't follow any of the characters we already know, which prior books kind of have, or at least kind of come home to the Wayward School and grounded itself in that story. This one is completely on its own. We don't have the Wayward School. We don't have any of our familiar characters. We have a brand new character. I don't know if you follow Shauna Maguire on social media, but I do, and she is incredibly obsessed with My Little Ponies. It's her jam. It's her thing. I get it, but I'm not an equine person. This is very equine forward, and I think even for those people that are horse people, it's gonna fall a little flat. For me, the storyline in this one just didn't go there. We didn't get where we wanted to go. We've got centaurs, we have unicorns, we have a girl who's always found peace inside of a barn who then gets thrown into this equine world as a human. I didn't get it. It's not my favorite. Will I continue to read and love the series? Yes, but that one did not work for me. Then we've got this beautiful cover, which I reversed my dust jacket. This is, if you're curious, this is Hoard by Katrina Leno. This is the Owl Crate edition that is beautiful, and I will continue to keep it on my shelves. I don't really know why, because it was just kind of meh for me. This is a haunted house kind of story. It is very dark. It's very grim. It has ton of content warnings, which I believe I have in my Goodreads review, and it is spooky. All the spooky vibes. I read it at just the right time. I think I read it in October. It was perfect for that time of year. But again, there is something about Katrina Leno's endings that just always fall a little bit flat for me. I have never 5-starred a book from her, although I do love Summer of Salt. That's my favorite of hers. Still wasn't a 5-star book. This was not a 5-star book, but I will be keeping it on my shelves, which I believe Summer of Salt and this book are the only ones that I have continued to keep because I do enjoy them the most. But I do think it's time for me to let Katrina Leno go. She's just not the author for me. But yeah, I mean, if you want spooky vibes, you're going to get spooky vibes. But other than that, it just kind of med for me. I have a couple others that I don't have physically that I want to talk about, but I've got 2 more that I do have physically. I have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this one was another meh book for me. I thought this was going to be the perfect horror. I read it in October. It was going to be amazing. Everybody was hyping this. And while I loved the rep in this book, and I loved that we saw different cultures, I like that we have an own voices author, the actual haunted house Gothic vibes of it fell very flat for me. The twist of what was going on in the house and how it all came down, very flat for me. A lot of the very like rapey, creepy overtones to the book, not a fan. So this is one that I think I still 3-starred. I think all of these have probably been 3-star books, but it just wasn't everything that I was hoping it would be, and it wasn't everything that I was expecting it to be based on the way that everybody was talking about it. Not bad, just not really for me. And like every single one of these tabs is like a rapey moment. I don't love that for me. And then I have a thriller, which I thought I was going to love because you know I have been in a thriller mood this year. Wait until you see my stat wrap up for the end of the year, guys. I have no idea what became of the Julie you used to know, but I was thriller heavy. I'm starting to come out of that, but when I tell you that the majority of what I read this year is thrillers, I am not kidding you. So I thought this would be an automatic win. It wasn't. It was just kind of like a 3 meh book for me. It may also be a result of reading so many thrillers because I started to see the threads. I started to see things coming together. So there was no real like aha, surprise, plot twist moment for me. I kind of pieced it all together a little bit earlier, and I just didn't love the way this was told. Now, I think if I had listened to the audiobook for this book, because it does follow a trial, so we're getting dual timelines and we're getting somebody reporting on it for a podcast, as well as what actually happened in the past. The past portions I loved. The current portion with all the trial drama, didn't love it. I'm not a fan of like courtroom dramas, but the actual like unfolding of what happened in the past, I loved. And I think maybe the podcast in the audiobook would have been better performed, but reading it, it was just very flat and there was no real voice distinction, and I didn't love it. So it was okay, but again, just I kind of saw things coming and I didn't really love it. This one was by Megan Golden. I don't know if I said that. So then we're going to get into a couple that I don't have with me. I've got a list. First up was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, which is the Crescent City. You know the book. I'll put it, it'll be here. But you know it. I've listened to this and it was a fantastic read for like diamond painting and just kind of being mindless about it. And it wasn't inherently bad. In fact, I appreciated it that she really went there with some characters. Some characters did not make it through the end of the book. I appreciated that she really did kind of amp up a lot of the drama and the intrigue, but in terms of some of the world building and character relationships, I thought it fell a little bit flat. And it's also, I kid you not, almost a direct reflection of her Court of Blank and Blank series. We've got a female protagonist who is, a special unicorn, and we have a male love interest who is winged and dark and brooding and tortured. And it's just, how is that any different than her other series? It felt very repetitive, very formulaic, even though she did kind of amp up certain other aspects of the book. And it's the first one that's been appropriately categorized as new adult. It was long. It was kind of reminiscent of everything else that she's written. I just didn't love it. It wasn't bad. It was just meh. It was meh. The Girl from Widow Hill. This one is, I'll put it here because I forget the author's name. But this one was about a girl who was having these like night episodes where she was sleepwalking and these weird things started happening. She had this troubled past where she had disappeared as a child while sleepwalking into a storm, got washed into a sewer drain, and then had to be rescued. And she was this big news headline. So she kind of tries to move away and forget that whole past of hers. But then weird things start happening again, and she's trying to piece things together. And I think a body is found on her property, and old things come back to light. And it fell flat for me. It had so much potential, and this is one of the first thrillers that I read this year, so it's not necessarily a victim of expecting things in thrillers. This one had a twist that I didn't appreciate and a plot device that I didn't appreciate, so it was like it fell flat. It was meh. It had potential. It was creepy. There was enough of like the red herring and the weaving of storylines throughout that built tension, and then the plot device, the big twist at the end, was something that I don't love in thrillers, and so it just kind of med out for me, which I will have on an entire video on all of the things I learned about thrillers this year, because it was my first foray into it, and man did I go deep. So we'll have that whole thing. Then we have two books that I anticipated loving that I did not end up liking at all. One of the things that I thought I was going to really, really love this year that I didn't end up loving and I unhauled was Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. I love We Were Liars. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and this one unfortunately fell really flat, and I think I should have expected that. I've heard a lot of people say that it's just not their favorite of hers, and that rang true. This was another one that was not a thriller, maybe like a mystery, kind of like a woman on the run, mysterious past kind of a situation. Very unreliable narrator, but the way that it all just came together was very unbelievable to me, and it was like a con artist kind of a story, and it just fell flat. So that one was a bummer because I had it on my shelves for a very long time, expecting to really love it, and then I started hearing things that weren't so great about it, and I let it sit because I didn't want to not love it, and then I read it and didn't love it. When thrillers work, they really work, and when thrillers don't work, they really don't work, and this one was The Dark Game by Jonathan Jantz. I have unhauled this. I don't want it in my presence. I don't want it in my vibe, in my area. This one was, for all accounts, supposed to be perfect. I had this signed and personalized to me. I met the author at BEA, and I was hyped for it. It is a group of authors that go to this elite author's mansion, and he's going to do a workshop with them. He is promising that whoever wins at the end of this workshop, whoever has the best work at the end of this workshop, he's going to connect to all of his connections in the publishing world. They will get a publishing deal. Their lives will change forever. They will become the new it author. How could I not love that, right? Tie in some mystery, some authory intrigue. I'm in. I'm all in. This thing went to weird places, and I'm fine with that. That's okay with me. But I wasn't necessarily expecting kind of like a weird paranormal vibe to the book. Even that I can be down with. Misogynistic men, you know, to a certain degree, maybe, sure. But then we get into downright, straight up rapey, pedophile, spying on your sisters through peepholes in showers. All of these authors turn out to have these troubled pasts, and a lot of their pasts involve pedophilia and rape and incest, and it was not okay. It was gross. I felt disgusting reading it. It made me feel a way I didn't enjoy. So this, I think, might be the only like 2-star book of the list. It was deeply, deeply unnerving and troubling, and I just didn't like it. And I should have. All of the signs were there. All the signs pointed to me loving that book. Did not like it at all. So those were my Matt books. There's not that many of them. I mean, I think in general I had other 3-star reads, but they were okay. They weren't bad. They kind of met my expectations. These were things that I thought I was going to love that underperformed. So they're my meh books. Let me know what one of yours is in a comment down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give me a big thumbs up. Click subscribe for more bookish and author content, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye guys. Let's try to just get it the fuck together.